Hi, I'm Lukas Volger. Today we're making oatmeal arancini from my new book, Snacks for Dinner. So our first step, we need to make our oatmeal. And to be honest, when I usually make oatmeal arancini, I am using leftover oats. So I'll make oatmeal for breakfast, and then the leftovers go into the fridge where they firm up and they're really easy to turn into arancini. First step is just melt about a teaspoon of butter over medium heat. And when the foaming subsides, go ahead and add 1 cup of steel cut oats and stir to coat it really well in the butter. This step is just to toast the oats, which brings out all the toasty flavor and really makes a big difference in the flavor of the oatmeal at the end. So I use steel cut oats because I like the texture a lot better. Rolled oats or instant oats, they've been rolled flat or pressed so that they cook more quickly, but they end up having kind of a mushy texture. Steel cut oats have been cracked or just kind of broken up. The whole oat groats have been broken up, and they take longer to cook, but they have a lot more texture and are a lot better for an arancini like this. And you only need to toast them for a couple minutes until they're fragrant. You'll be able to smell they'll smell kind of like buttery and almost like cookies baking. Okay, next we're adding 2 cups of whole milk. You can use plant-based milk here instead if you want to, but my favorite is whole milk because it ends up making really creamy oats. And then 2 cups of water. So I like to use a combination of milk and water when I make oatmeal. Sometimes it's just a little bit of milk, like a ½ cup or 1 cup. You could cook your oatmeal in all milk as well, but what it does is just add, it makes the oatmeal really, really creamy and really delicious. For oatmeal arancini specifically, the way the milk cooks down and thickens, it gets kind of thick and creamy, almost like adding a bechamel. So it adds this really necessary creamy element. And once the milk and the water in there starts to come to a boil, add a ½ teaspoon of salt, give it a quick stir, then cover the pan partially, turn down the heat to medium-low, and you'll want to cook this for about 20 minutes until the oats have soaked up all the liquid and it's nice and creamy. While this is cooking, you will definitely want to stir it every now and then. Since there's milk in there, the proteins will seal on the top, and then that forces the temperature underneath to get really hot, which is what causes the whole thing to boil over. So make sure you check it and give it a stir every now and then. About 5 years ago, I gave myself this Instagram challenge and I called it 28 Days of Oatmeal. The whole idea behind it was just to serve myself my daily oatmeal, but change the toppings every day and post it on Instagram, which would give me accountability. That's how these came about, because for a whole month I always had leftover oatmeal on hand, and was looking at it one day and was like, wow, that actually looks a lot like firmed up leftover risotto, and one thing led to another. Once the oatmeal is cooked, you can take it off the heat, transfer it into a bowl, let it cool completely, and then ideally put it in the fridge overnight. Now that our oatmeal is cool and you can see how much it's thickened up, we're ready to shape and bread our arancini. We'll need about a cup of flour, 1 egg that's beaten up, and about a cup of breadcrumbs. And I'm gonna go ahead and season each one of those with a pinch of salt and pepper. I also have my fillings here, and this is just cubed up mozzarella cheese, but you can use any kind of cheese that melts really well. I also really like fontina cheese. Also, arancini are a terrific vessel for any kind of leftover you have, like roasted vegetables or some kind of stewy, like ratatouille sort of thing, or little dabs of pesto. You can really go crazy with arancini fillings, and I encourage you to. So to shape the arancini, it's really helpful to use moistened hands. Just dip them in water. This will prevent the oatmeal from sticking. The same thing as like making veggie burgers or making meatballs. So I'm just gonna get my hands a little bit wet and take about a heaping tablespoon of the cooked oatmeal. Add a cube of cheese or whatever you're using as your filling, and then another heaping tablespoon or so. Sandwich it together. And again, the wet hands kind of help here. And you'll just kind of seal the cheese in there. It's actually kind of important to be thorough when you do this, because they do have a tendency to crack when you fry them, which is not the end of the world, but you can avoid it pretty easily. Okay, now we're ready to bread the arancini, and as with all battering, the best method is like a wet hand and a dry hand, and that just kind of minimizes the mess as you work. So this is my wet hand, here's my dry hand. My wet hand into the wet, coating really lightly in the egg, and then make sure you shake off the excess. Into the breadcrumbs, and there we go. Snacks for dinner is organized around the idea that you can make a really exciting, fun meal from lots of little things, combining homemade stuff with store-bought stuff, and it just increases the variety and the opportunity for eating, like particularly around vegetables. And it's also just a fun way to like elevate snacks and make them, you know, a more significant part of a meal. Okay, we're ready to fry the arancini. I have here, this is about 3/4 of an inch of olive oil that's been heated to somewhere between 350 and 375 degrees. When I fry, I'm a big fan of shallow frying, simply because it means I can use less oil, but that does mean you need to turn it periodically as you're cooking. So if you want to deep fry and fully submerge these things, you absolutely can. This is just my preferred method. You can cook them about 3 at a time. You wouldn't want to do too many more than that because you'll risk dramatically lowering the temperature of the oil, but 3 fits kind of perfectly in a little saucepan like this. So you'll just want to make sure to carefully turn them as you cook so that they fry evenly all around. And this will take about 6 to 8 minutes. I like to fry using olive oil. I know it has a slightly lower smoke point than like vegetable oil or canola oil, but the flavor's a lot better, and it's also an unrefined oil. And as long as you watch the temperature and make sure that it doesn't overheat, you're gonna be fine. Once they are evenly golden all over, carefully transfer them over to a cooling rack like this, or you can use, look, sometimes you get a little peek of cheese coming out, which I kind of like that. It's like a preview of what's inside. You can also drain these on a piece of butcher paper. Let them cool for a few minutes, but you definitely want to eat them while they're still warm and the cheese is all melty. They're hot.
Let them cool for a few minutes.
It's a perfect illustration of like savory oatmeal's potential. The cheese, the saltiness, the crispy breading. It's really good. Thanks for watching. This is a great way to use up your leftover oatmeal and do something new with it. You can find the recipe in my new cookbook, Snacks for Dinner, or at the link in the description.